We are assembled here today to pay a last tribute to our departed veteran, Daniel Moss. When his country called in his youth, he put aside his own ambitions, and he went to serve his country in World War II. His self was forgotten because there was a greater good, and as a brave young man, he marched away with an abiding faith in his God, his country, and his flag. Sergeant Moss served in the Army Air Corps during World War II. He was based in Italy and flew in B-24 Liberator bombers. He was trained to be a radio operator, but he ended up as a tail gunner because the tail gunner wasn't happy back there, and Sergeant Moss said, sure. He sat out there in the open, a young man with a weapon. On August 19, 1944, his plane was shot down over Ploesti, an oil refinery in Romania. He had a little problem. He kind of missed parachute training. He and a friend decided to borrow the captain's Jeep and go visit places in Italy. So here he was now, a young soldier, young airman, who has to parachute out of a plane, and he's never done that before. But being a survivor, he figured it out. He hit hard, but he survived the jump. And then it was try to stay alive. He hit the ground, and he started to run, and as he was running, he realized that his boot was filling up with water. And well, it turned out it wasn't water. He had been shot in the calf. His boot was filling up with his own blood. He hid in some bushes, quiet, and then he heard a step, and he froze for fear of German soldiers. And he heard another step, and another. He decided to look and face the German soldiers. Turned out to be a turtle, but he did what he was trained to do, and that is just survive. He could turn anything like being shot down into an interesting story about a turtle. After a few days, he had to go get water. He was out in the open drinking from a pond. A goat hurt his dogs, flushed him out, and he was captured. He was put in a cell with several other prisoners for many days with no food or water. There was a high barred window at the top, and he could see leaves, and he took it upon himself to try to reach through and to grab some leaves so that he and his fellow prisoners could have water. He was rewarded by a German soldier by being knocked unconscious for his efforts. He was initially imprisoned in Stalag Luft 4 in Groß-Teichau, Poland, and then he was shipped to Stalag Luft 1 in Both, Germany. He survived his brutal treatment, including being herded by dogs with metal-pointed collars, young SS troops prodding prisoners with bayonets, packed into boxcars to move the prisoners, given little food. Sometimes the bread had ground glass in it. He endured a freezing winter where the group would cover themselves with snow to stay warm. He was liberated by the Russians, and he was put in a select group of prisoners of war, and they were put in a cart, and they were heading east. Sergeant Moss decided he was not going east. He jumped out of the cart, and he ran. He ran while the Russian soldiers who had just liberated shot at him. He has a wonderful story. When the war was over and the soldiers were waiting to come home, he actually met General Dwight Eisenhower. He just happened to come into the camp that Sergeant Moss was in and struck up a conversation with him. And it meant a lot to him, and he carried it as a proud memory of his service for the rest of his life. He went into the military weighing 180 pounds. He came out weighing 70 pounds. He was a lifelong member of the American Ex-Prisoners of War. Sergeant Moss received several medals for his service. He earned the Purple Heart for being wounded. He earned the Prisoners of War medal, and he earned a unique medal called the Caterpillar Club. It's a small pin that is given to any soldier, sailor, Marine airman who has to bail out of an airplane. Caterpillars made the silk back then. Parachutes are made of silks, and he was most proud of that. Didn't have any training, but he did it anyway, and he survived. Today, Every nation still faces the same cares and problems that they always have, whether we are engaged in war or peace. And those days fade away when we look at our veterans. And we hope that Sergeant Moss has been an inspiration to the veterans who come behind him to continue the legacy of supporting and defending our great country. As the years roll on, we too shall have finished our fight and shall be laid to rest, and our souls follow the long column to the realms above, as all unfolding death, hour by hour, shall mark his recruits. Let us so live that when the keeper of the eternal records shall call our name for the last time, those we have left behind may say of us, as we say now of this veteran, we pay last respects to a true-hearted veteran and a fearless defender of our country and our flag.